Hey, I'm Jay, and this is how I made my own character in Unreal Engine 5. Okay, so I just finished my latest project called Flex, and it's just all about Unreal Engine 5. Some of you may know I made a video on it before. Unreal Engine 5, just the new stuff coming out, really exciting to me. I mostly, in my personal work, dabble in like offline rendering. I make games for my job, so I don't necessarily, mess around with game engines for fun as much anymore, but Unreal is just so amazing, all the little things it can do that I wanted to play with. So I wanted to devise a project that I could have fun with and just use Unreal Engine 5 stuff. I even purchased a PC computer that has the NVIDIA RTX 3090 card in it so that I could take advantage of some of this new stuff. My Mac obviously can't do the RTX magic, and I need the RTX magic though. So that's what this project was about. The jumping off idea, pretty simple. I wanted to do kind of a cyberpunky girl with attitude again, just flexing. Like the idea is I'm flexing, like I think it's a cool personality thing that I could do in a character, like a vibe for the character. But then also at the same time, it's flexing the new PC. It's flexing the real-time rendering. It's flexing the capabilities of Unreal Engine. Now, the stuff I'm doing with it, you don't really need Unreal Engine 5. I just wanted some experience using it. But I'm using things like the ray tracing, the real-time ray tracing. I'm using strand-based hairs instead of hair cards. So I get to do my groom in XGen. I'm using the skin shader and the cloth shader, and I'm stealing a bunch of stuff from MetaHumans because those assets are great, obviously made by the employees at Epic. So I'm just taking all of their hard-earned work that they spent all their time and energy making, and I'm just stealing it and repurposing it for my own character instead of having to figure all that out again. So it's a good learning opportunity. If you're interested, you can download these projects for free. You can download the engine for free. All that stuff is free, what I'm doing. And then you can take a look at their assets. You can take a look at their materials. So if you're interested in doing game art, what's stopping you? You get to investigate like what the bleeding edge pros are doing, and you get a state-of-the-art renderer for it that you could do presentations and renders and blah, blah, blah. So all that being said, let's dive in. Let's talk about starting to make this character. I'll first show you my reference board so we can take a look at my inspirations and what I collected throughout the process. That way I can give you a clear picture of my starting off point and my influences along the way. So here we are in PureRef. This is like the bird's eye view. We just zoom in here. This is the main idea. Got some clips here from the great reference that I captured from my acting abilities. You can see here, this is the vibe right here. Definitely, like I love the stank face too, all about this. You can see here, I'm trying to do this like, you saw the video. It's like a cocky, confident, flexing on you, like you just dunked on somebody kind of deal. That's the idea. So then I got some reference here of things like the shirt, the drapery, like maybe wrinkles on the shirt. I love this style because it's this android girl, and I love the bright colored background. Same with this. So I'm stealing those kinds of ideas. You can actually see that I have a color, like main color palette up here that I whittled down just because I want it to be bold. I want it to be bright and colorful, and I wanted the color scheme to be somewhat homogeneous. So I didn't stick to this like rigidly, but this is definitely like something that I was thinking about, and I used it when I was picking my colors. If you're not familiar, this is just taken from this website, coolers.co, and you can just like start a generator, and then you can start picking colors and pinning them if you want, and you can shuffle them up. I think you hit spacebar, yeah, and it randomizes it, and then you can like pin something, right? And then I can say, I want to lock this, and then it starts to make color palettes based on that. So anyways, I just copy and pasted an image there. So I had these colors moving forward, so I knew the direction I wanted to go. You can see here also like Yolandi, always the vibe. Over here, I have my shirt reference, just something I was thinking about throughout the process, like how short the shirt would be, what material, how the wrinkles would be. So I got some things I liked. Like I liked some of this stuff. This actually became really close to the final material and the cut and everything. You can see here I actually have my own reference of the dye and stuff that I can zoom in on and try to emulate. I wanted to go with this kind of acid black tie-dye type of look. The hair, right here, probably the main style ref. But then got some other references here. This one too, probably the main one too, the like cut of it. And then the other ones just for different reasons, like these long sideburny things, the back of the hair, obviously the color. Love this bright, bold color. This a little bit more green, which is right. You know, remember, like I have this green. This is what this is supposed to be. Then I got my tech stuff. I'm doing my arm. You know, I just wanted to make something up. It's another thing I wanted to do with this project is play around a little bit with hard surface stuff in ZBrush, designing and building it, trying to be faster at that. It's not something that I do, so I wanted to get a lot of reference and kind of narrow it down so I wasn't going too crazy. But I did love this reference right here. You can see more pictures of this arm, which I think looks so sick. Over on Tarn Greenlaw's ArtStation profile, he did this, I think, while working at Weta, right, for this project. And I just love the translucent muscle stuff. Just in general, all their work's always great. I haven't seen this movie, but this freaking look right here is sick. So anyways, I saved this. This is one of my references that you'll see come up. This is always a good reference, something, you know, for you guys to think about if you're playing around with hard surface and stuff. Is this is a very simple shape, but you can see how after getting a very simple shape, doing these like little cuts and then adding these little details, adding these like this cut that just makes a line, having these like offset things. Like this is just a great example of little things to add to make something that's very simple look complicated. And then finally down here, some texture and material reference. You can see obviously Chappie, again, Weta's work, because I'm obviously a stan of everything that Weta does. But this texture work's amazing. I mean, come on, dude. Look at this. Look at it. So obviously what I made is nowhere near this. This is also super dope. Shout out to Lauren and Mike Brainerd from their work on Evolve. I think this is super underrated. This is a sick design, texture job, presentation. Like, I think this is epic. And this is like 7 years old or something now, probably. This is also obviously always a good reference. I don't know if you've seen this floating around, but yeah, so here's some of my texture reference. So here's my reference. That's it. You'll see some of these influences pop up throughout the process, but this is an idea of something that I collected throughout. So I started with something, and then as I'm working, I'll need some other images. So I'm kind of constantly refining this throughout the process, and this is what it ended up as. All right, so we said all that. Let's jump in now and start making a character. Okay, so jumping right into it, I started out in ZBrush like I normally do. I started with my base mesh, and then I just started pushing and pulling things around to get the general shape I was after. I also knew throughout that this was going to be like a 3/4 up, you know, like I wasn't going to do a full character, so I tried not to spend too much time there. I knew that the final image was going to be somewhat cropped up there, so I'm spending a lot of time on the upper body. I'm trying to get the pose in there really fast. I'm just making this like in the final pose the whole time. So I have a pretty clear idea of the pieces I need for this one, and it's not too many. I got to make the shirt, so I'm extracting off the shirt, doing some quick Z-remesh just so it's nice and easy to manipulate. Try to get that shirt looking nice too. I'm constantly going back and forth with like the shapes of stuff, like how short the shirt is and the arms and everything. The arms are the big part to figure out for me. This project, another thing I wanted to do was try out some hard surface techniques in ZBrush, which I don't do a lot, and I want to get better at that. So this was kind of a way where I could have a project that had a little bit of it. So I stayed in Dynamesh for quite some time with the modeling of the arms. That's kind of the techniques that I'm looking to get better at, is fast, iterative design work kind of for hard surface while keeping things kind of clean. Typically what I end up doing is modeling everything, and that's kind of what I fell into again. I ended up essentially just sub-D modeling in ZBrush. So I'm just maintaining a clean mesh the whole time. So this did take me longer than I wanted to, but I do think that the sketchy, fast Dynamesh stuff helped me define what I was going to do. It enabled me to be a little bit faster and play around that way. But then I did, you know, go the long way around to rebuild all the meshes so that it's subdivided really clean and I could control everything. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I know it's simple. You know, I kept it kind of simple. But for me, it's a little bit of growth there because I don't do a lot of hard surface. Actually, it was kind of a pain to like redo these kind of bolt things on her joints because I thought, oh, I'll just make it Dynamesh, and then I decimated it. So I made the topology all junky, and then I realized, you know what, I don't want to do that. So I had to do the long process of rebuilding them. I probably should have just rebuilt them from the start, to be honest. But yeah, I remade them the long way around again to make it clean. The hand I kept as dynamic subdiv. So that's the typical way I work, and that's how I ended up building the neck, which I added later. So the neck, some parts of the arm, and all of the hand are dynamic subdiv. So I'm just controlling a pretty low resolution mesh, and then I'm using crease in ZBrush, and I'm using the thickness in dynamic subdiv to show me thickness in a non-destructive way. So I'm not committing to any of this. So it lets me be iterative. It lets me add and move around, but giving me like a high-res preview. And then when I'm ready to finish it at the end, I apply those things that are dynamic, and then now they're live. So I can subdivide and then like smooth out the edges. And then I can even like ding it up if I wanted to, which I didn't do for this one. But that's my typical method for making a hard surface stuff, is using dynamic. But the sketchy, quick sculpting stuff, I think helped me form a plan that was clear, because to make clean meshes, you got to know what you're trying to build. Okay, so the hairstyle, this actually ended up being pretty straightforward. I just had a clear idea going through reference, and even the initial idea, I just kind of knew I wanted this funky cut with the kind of flippy back, have some bangs and these long sideburn pieces. So I knew that's what I was after. And then it was just about playing with the proportions and stuff until I liked it. I did split up the descriptions in XGen and Maya again, so that I can control the aspects differently. It makes things easier. And I learned that it doesn't matter when you're exporting to Unreal if you have multiple descriptions. So the bangs are separate. So this is only 2 pieces. And then I did the eyebrows, and then I did the eyelashes. So those are all separate descriptions, and then I can control all of them and, do what I need to do there. I did start the hair in ZBrush again using fiber mesh curves, and then moved it over. I don't know if that's a big time savings, but it lets me start it in ZBrush. I think it's easier. It's definitely easier to manipulate a bunch of curves in ZBrush, but I'm always finding myself converting those and grooming more in Maya. So I don't know, take it or leave it. I don't know if it's like a shortcut, but it has been part of the workflow for me. All right, so after I worked on the hair, I got the head kind of generally set up. I wanted to break the ice with moving to Unreal, because the whole time I knew the whole point is to render this in Unreal. That was a big question mark. I haven't gone there in personal work in a long time. I haven't done it with Unreal Engine 5, that's for sure. So I just wanted to dive in there and test some stuff out. So I just took what I have right now, and I did that. So I started out by downloading the Unreal 5 version of the MetaHumans project, which you can just get on the Epic Marketplace for free, and it's got all of the MetaHuman assets in it. So I opened that scene up, and I imported my character, like this test that I just made, as an FBX. It also comes with their materials, so I stole their materials. So I actually just started cannibalizing all of the MetaHuman stuff, because why not? I even ended up taking the eyes. This is something that's been true in Unreal for a while, is that they made very nice eyes, which is important in any kind of rendering. But real-time rendering, eyes are tricky. Eyes are always tricky. But Unreal Engine made some beautiful eyes, but in doing so, they had to hard code some stuff. So if you use their stuff, and they urge you to do that, if you use their stuff the way they built it, you get all the benefits. So rather than trying to reverse engineer, I just downloaded the MetaHumans asset, and I imported it, and I just stole the eye mesh. That way I knew I had the UVs right, and I didn't have to think about it, and I could just use the awesome eye shader that they had. I thought I was going to make a custom iris, but I ended up just playing with the color, and I liked it, and I just kept it like that. Making the hair material in Unreal was something I wanted to do right away. I wanted to import the hair and see if it worked, how it worked, if I could make a believable enough shader with some color, because I knew I wanted to do some color dye stuff. So I found out that the way you would import hair from XGen is you convert it. I use the traditional XGen guides, like the procedural sort of grooming. I don't use interactive grooming, but converting it to interactive groom is part of the process, because ultimately what you're doing is you're exporting a cache, a .abc file that has the curve data that Unreal can redraw curves from. So you're not actually exporting curves per se, or like a model. You're exporting the data, and then Unreal is drawing the curves. So I could just convert all of my descriptions. So I did that in the first test. I actually just converted everything. So it's just one export. And then I exported that as this cache file, and then I imported it and it worked. And I was like, great. And you can control the width, and it's really cool, the tool. So I ended up splitting these things out, like the eyebrows and the eyelashes later on, so that I could have my own materials and I could have my own curve settings. I ended up making the eyelashes thicker, for instance, so it looks like mascara and just more substantial lashes. But for the hair shader, I ended up finding out that there's a node in Unreal already for the curves for hair, and I could use some data that's in the curves already, like the root to tip. So I could drive like 2 colors that way, and I ended up making like a little simple master material that gets me this green fade, and I can make these color parameters so I can tweak it. And I ended up liking how it looked. It's not too complicated. I thought about doing some more complicated things, but I thought it looked cool, even though it was simple. And I thought, hey, let's just stick with this. So that's how I ended up making the hair material. I also jacked the MetaHumans skin shader, which was pretty easy to do. I ripped out all the junk that I didn't need because there's lots of like normal map stuff for animation, like for facial stuff. I just needed the basic setup, and I also pointed it to my own normal map, and then I could use the micro tile, and I could even feed my own micro tile normal map to that too. It just has everything set up, and I don't have to build it from scratch. So it was easier and faster for me to just rip a bunch of stuff out. And I actually kept the base texture because it lined up to my UVs pretty good. So I actually kept it for a long time. You can see the nostril looks kind of wonky, but this is just the default MetaHumans material on my head model. And it lined up close enough to do these like tests where it stayed like this for quite some time until I edited it. I actually later on ended up just opening the MetaHumans base color for the skin and then just tweaking it to my own needs, like painting out some stuff and lining up the nostrils and lips. I actually later on used this same base color in Substance Painter. I actually just imported the texture file there as a fill layer in Substance. I can just use it as the base color still there and then add a layer on top that I could do my eye makeup. I decided to add some mascara towards the end, and that's how I did that. The skin on the torso, I also made in Substance Painter. This one was pretty simple. I just used like fill layers and then some procedurals to make some noise to give it like some organic breakup. And then I tried to match the base color, like the actual skin tone of the head as best I could so that it seemed like it was all connected to the same person. But that one was just kind of a quick texture job in Substance Painter. And then you can see it here in the engine. Once I had these basic materials and this model set up in the scene, I started to like arrange the overall scene, like the backdrop, get the color dialed in, start moving the camera, tweaking that, the lights, getting the major light positions. You know, I wanted to make it very bright and bubbly. So it's this kind of studio lighting setup. So I have this kind of side light coming from the top. I wanted to catch those reflections in the eyes, so it's a little low. And then I have a rim light on the reverse coming from over her shoulder just to pop her off the background and wrap around some of those forms. Okay, so back to the full character. So I did my preliminary setup. I dove into Unreal, you know, just to break the ice, just to get my feet wet with that and to build confidence in the workflow. So I knew that it was going to work and then I could just focus on the rest of the character. So I did that. I finished up the high poly, made the nice meshes, and part of that is preparing not only my high poly, but my low poly. So I ended up resurfacing some of these models, mostly by Z-Remesher and doing like tricks like that to get nice topology that would subdivide well. But it would also allow me to use the lower subdivision levels to be my render mesh. You know, my goal here is to render in real time in Unreal, but it can handle a lot of polygons. So I'm not like too precious about it. It's not like I'm making a game character. I just want it, you know, I want it to look really good, but I don't want it to slow down my machine and I don't need it to be too crazy. So it's just kind of like a mid polygon count thing. I'm not even keeping track of the number. I'm just, you know, I'm just eyeballing it. So as I rebuild all these meshes, they're nice and clean for subdivisions and everything like that, and also for real-time meshes. So then I have to UV map them. So to do that, I would use the Unwrap plugin in ZBrush. A lot of the time that's going to work, but for some of these fabrics, I need to arrange them in the right way so that the micro tile looks correct. Like if you're doing a weave pattern, you know, like the seams need to be straight, the neck hole needs to be straight. And then some of these other like hard surface stuff with the arms, I have to pack everything. So even though ZBrush doing automatic UVs is useful and you can do it for fast stuff, I did have to be kind of particular. So I ended up exporting some of these models when I needed like pinpoint, you know, control of the UVs into Maya, and I would finish the UVs in there, export it and bring it back into ZBrush, and then that would update it. So by the end, my goal was I have this ZTL, this ZBrush file that has my high poly and my quote unquote low poly, and it's all UV'd. you know? So I have this one file that has everything because everything's been rebuilt. So because my high and my low, or my, you know, my render meshes are connected, I just exported everything at its highest subdivision level as my high poly, and then I dropped everything down to as low as I wanted to go, exported that as my quote unquote low poly, and that's what I used to bake, and I used that to texture, and then ultimately I exported that same thing to render in Unreal. Once I was in Painter and I got it baked, then it was fun. You know, I could start to lay out the materials, start getting the textures and stuff feeling right for things like the paint. The cloth shader, I ended up stealing that from MetaHumans too, so I got a lot of their fancy stuff. That thing was really complicated, but I ended up making this little RGB mask to test like how some of the functionality worked, because I knew that I wanted to put the Unreal logo on the shirt. So I needed to be able to mask some of the cloth effects off of that. And by like tracking down what channels, I knew that I could do that. I didn't go so far as to build like custom channels in Painter because, you know, I was doing this like fast and dirty. So I used the actual RGB channels to do that. So you can see, like, once I did that in Substance, the shirt looks wrong. It's like all glossy, but it's just because I'm using RG and B. Like, all I need is the base color, and then RG and B is, you know, for the PBR stuff, is just to mask the logo out. So that's why it looks weird in Substance Painter, but it gave me the result that I was looking for in the engine. These muscle fibers too, I was kind of happy how this came out in the end. I knew I wanted to do something special. There was a reference by some work that Weta did that really caught my eye, the synthetic muscle. And I thought it would be cool if I could achieve a similar translucent quality to make the muscle fibers of the shoulders, you know, look otherworldly, or just look, you know, a little bit more high tech. So I did make a new master material just for the shoulders, and I experimented with different shading models to get that translucent quality. And once I finally got that working, then I went to Substance Painter to start playing around with like getting a tiling texture, experimenting with different patterns, and ultimately I ended up with this kind of small diamond type thing that ended up looking very grippy. I think it ended up making it look extra strong, but at the same time there's a softness because it's translucent. And hopefully it makes it look like more of a premium material, more of a futuristic high-tech material. And it's another way to bring some of this color in, you know? For a long time, I just figured they'd be black. Thought it was a little bit boring, and I just want to do something a little bit more interesting and fun with it. And yeah, I was happy. It was another way to flex some Unreal Engine stuff that you can make real-time translucent materials. So that's how I did the shoulders. Okay, so back to the texturing of the character. One of the things that I thought would be fun is I had this idea of her drawing on her own arms, and a way to bring interest and lots of just like personalization to the texture, things that, you know, it's just a little bit more individualistic and unique. And then I ended up bending that into like the overall theme, which is this Unreal Engine flex of using their tools and really leaning into that and having fun. So I ended up doing a lot of little, I don't know, nods to Unreal stuff. Like I put the 3 from Unreal Engine 3. I drew the Gears of War logo on the arm. And these are things that made a big impact on me. Like I still remember Gears of War setting the bar for game art, real-time art. They've just been at the forefront for a long time. So these are memories I have of things that were like personally influencing me. I also played a lot of the games when I was a kid, so I put the champion on the arm. I also drew RTX on her other arm because that's what's enabling me to do a lot of this like real-time ray tracing type of rendering. I built a machine, you know, purely for this type of workflow, and RTX is the thing that's holding all this stuff up. I even went so far as to look up some business information from Epic Games, so I hid their original name, Potomac Computer Systems, on her neck. And I also added their founding date on there. So, you know, really, really small, not necessarily something people are going to see. I think it ends up being like a little bit of a detail, but I did add those little things there. I thought another opportunity for an Easter egg, and also just to add something to make it feel like it had a manufacturer mark on there. All right, I just want to take a second to thank this video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is a platform that has tons of videos and all kinds of topics if you want to get into it. pretty much anything that you're interested in learning more. They have great online courses that you can watch just by paying a monthly fee. I've been a member for years now and I use it. For instance, I've got these courses on Notion, which is a application I use to manage all my projects. So this one right here from Francisco seems cool, and I might get some tips and stuff that I can use in my own workflow. There's several Notion classes on here that I've looked at because I'm trying to get better at the whole process of managing everything that I'm doing. There's not only nerdy productive stuff, but there's also things like the stuff that Jazz is doing. He just recently came out with one where he's doing a 28-day drawing challenge of characters. Then obviously he's done one too about his YouTube channel, which I've already saved because I'm trying to live that YouTuber life, you know. But if you're interested in doing like drawing and learning how to do characters and stuff, there's something for everybody. So the first 1,000 people that click the link down below in my description will get 1 month of Skillshare for free. So if you haven't already, go ahead and click that and then learn some stuff for free. All right, so once everything was further along and I was getting happier with it, throughout the process, I was taking these high resolution images so that when I was ready, I could make these big ones. And I did something that I haven't used before, which I think I'll be using moving forward, is this little plugin that you can just turn on for Unreal Engine called Movie Render Queue. And it lets you set options and then it'll save out images. Typically, you have to just take a screenshot. There's a tool called High Resolution Screenshot in Unreal, which just, renders the frame that you're looking at, and you can make it larger. But there's sometimes some downsides to that. And using this plugin, not only did I get to choose the resolution that I wanted, but I can have it do super sampling for the anti-aliasing, and that just overall makes such a cleaner image. So I was really happy to discover that. I haven't used that before. So that's what I'm using. You can see I do the settings for the resolution and for the temporal anti-aliasing and how many times it's going to super sample. And so I'm using the sequencer. You have to use the sequencer to use this plugin, but also I'm using the sequencer to store shots. So throughout the process, I can keep going back to the same angles. I'm just checking the progress of the character if it's looking good in those angles, in those shots. And then when I'm done, I can render them out super big, or in some cases, I render out videos because, it's real time. Why not? I can move the camera around. And so that's exactly what I did. So here are some of the clips of Flex. So that is how I made Flex, my latest project. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you learned something through all of that. If you don't know already, I just started a Patreon where I'm adding all of the footage that I record during my projects. So this one is up there right now along with this video when I posted it, and my past projects like the Orc project and Cybergirl and some others. So that's where all the stuff's gonna live. I've been asked, for these things before, and I thought this is how I'm gonna do it. So Patreon will just be where I put all of the footage that I record for people to go through, and I'll also be adding exclusive tutorials up there on workflows that I do and answering people's questions. So if you're a super nerd about all this, then consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/artofjhill, and hopefully you find something there that you like. But that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching up to this point. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support in the comments and on the channel, so thank you. So that's it for now. I'll see you in the next one. Go out there and make some cool shit. Peace.